What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here on the Broken Havoc podcast, here to review AEW Friday Night Dynamite from June 18th, 2021, the final Friday Night Dynamite. I will say, thank God that it's the final Friday Night Dynamite. Now, granted, they're still going to be preempted next week, but they're going to be preempted on Saturday. But it's not going to start at 10, and it's not going to end at 12. It's actually going to start at 8 p.m. next Saturday. So I'm happy about that because of the fact that I was not really a fan of AEW starting at 10 right after SmackDown and ending at 12, because by the second hour, I'm just drained and I do not feel like watching the show. That is not because of the fact that the show is necessarily bad, because it's not. It's actually a really good show, in my opinion. I just don't like the fact that the show ends way too late, and I'm just drained and I don't feel like watching wrestling up till midnight. That's my opinion. It really gives me just WrestleMania vibes when it was like an 8-hour show, because I remember I attended WrestleMania 35, and I will tell you, I went into MetLife Stadium before the pre-show even started. I went into the stadium at 3. I left the stadium at like 12:30. You know, that sucks. But still, I mean, you know, I'm happy that Dynamite is finally, you know, going back to prime time. They're still going to be preempted all the way till the end of this month of June, but hey, it is what it is. The NBA playoffs are going on, so what can you do? But what are my thoughts on AEW Dynamite? I said this, I wasn't really invested in last week's show, and I'm going to have to say this week. I wasn't really interested in this show as well. I thought the first hour was kind of eh. I was not a really big fan of the MMA Cage Fight. I understand what they were trying to do. AEW went all out when it came to this MMA Cage Fight, but I'm going to be 100% honest. I was just not a fan of the Cage Fight. Everybody knows that the Cage Fight was a work, but I'm going to be going over that in a couple moments. But I thought the second hour was much better than the first hour. I thought the tag team match in the main event was really good. Of course, the Elite won. Granted, the Young Bucks, only one half of the Young Bucks were in that match, because Matt Jackson was teamed with the Good Brothers against Eddie Kingston, Pac, and Kazarian. So, yeah, I mean, overall thoughts, I mean, the second hour was much better. There was more, in my opinion, in the second hour than the first. The MMA Cage Fight was not really my thing, but let's start with Dynamite. All right, so we got the MMA Cage Fight, and Dynamite went all out, as I stated earlier, with the MMA Cage Fight. Instead of a ring, they had a 6-sided cage, and basically it looked like an MMA fight. Granted, it did have experienced wrestlers who had a background in mixed martial arts. You know, of course, Jake Hager, he's, of course, fighting in Bellator. I don't follow MMA, but I know he's undefeated, okay? Wardlow, I believe Excalibur stated he had a background in judo or jiu-jitsu, whatever that was. I think it was jiu-jitsu. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Excalibur during the match stated that. But what are my thoughts on this MMA Cage Fight? You know, everybody knows pro wrestling's a work. If you don't think pro wrestling's a work, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with you, but pro wrestling's a work. We've known that since, like, I don't know, like the late 80s, early 90s. Like, not only that, even in the 80s. But, I mean, pro wrestling's a work, and you're doing an MMA Cage Fight. Now, granted, everybody knows it's a work, but at the same time, my problem with it is the fact, and look, both wrestlers, both Jake Hager and Wardlow, did their best to try to make it realistic as possible. But I honestly believe that, you know, it looked pretty obvious that this was a work. I mean, a lot of the right hands that, you know, Jake Hager and Wardlow were giving each other clearly was a worked punch. If you thought those were actual punches, I don't know what's wrong with you. Those were worked punches. Of course, they're trying to protect each other because it's a worked shoot. But, I mean, if you show this to an MMA fan, and this is coming from someone that does not watch MMA at all. I do not watch MMA whatsoever. But if you show this to an MMA fan, I do believe that they're probably going to be cringing, mainly because of the fact that they're doing an MMA fight in a pro wrestling show. They tried their best, but in my opinion, I didn't think it was all that great. This whole thing was just for storyline purposes, but I was not really that big of a fan of the cage fight, but it is what it is. So this fight had 2 rounds. Aubrey Edwards was the referee. Justin Roberts, of course, was over-exaggerating when it comes to his when it comes to his announcing, of course, because it's supposed to be an MMA cage fight instead of a wrestling match. So the first round happens, and there was a first jab by Hager in the first round. Wardlow drops. We get a couple takedowns. Then we get a couple ground and pounds by Wardlow. The second round happens, and I forgot to mention that Wardlow is actually accompanied by Shawn Spears, and also Jake Hager is accompanied by Chris Jericho. So keep that in mind because some shit's about to go down after the fight happens. So we get a round two begins, and there's a waist lock by Hager. There's a couple right and left jabs by Wardlow. We got a cross arm breaker by Wardlow. We got a Hurricane Rana by Wardlow. Then we get a triangle on Wardlow, and then we get a Hurricane Rana. We get a Hurricane Rana in an MMA cage fight. I don't even know if this I didn't know that Hurricane Ranas were in an MMA fight. I doubt you would see any Hurricane Rana in an MMA cage fight, in my opinion. Like, do you see any Hurricane Ranas in an MMA cage fight? If any of you watching this video, please comment down below if there's any Hurricane Ranas in an MMA fight, because I don't think there is, and I don't watch MMA. Then we get a triangle by Hager again. We get a Uranagi into a triangle by Hager. Hager puts Wardlow to sleep after that, and the fight ends. Hager wins the fight. What are my thoughts on this fight? Not really. I wasn't that big of a fan of it. I was like, some people liked it, and that's great. If you liked it, that's fine. Some other people did not like it. I am on the fence of not liking it. Just stick to the pro wrestling aspect of, because you're a wrestling show. This is not MMA. This is professional wrestling. But, I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to make this interesting and trying to have fun with it. But, there's some things that you can and cannot do. And I feel like, with an MMA cage fight, I mean, this was nothing like the Brawl for All. I mean, the Brawl for All was basically a whole shoot. That was a real shoot. And a lot of people did get hurt. And I understand, granted, I did say before that the shots were, of course, worked shots. But, I mean, you have to look at it from another perspective to the point where, of course, they're trying to protect each other because this is a pro wrestling show. This is not, an actual shoot. This is a worked shoot in this case. But I wasn't a big fan of this MMA cage fight, in my opinion. So after that, Hager actually tries to shake the hand of Wardlow, but Spears attacks him from behind. Both Wardlow and Spears attack Jericho after that. MJF comes in and applies an armbar. So MJF comes in and applies an armbar on Jericho. And then after that, after applying the armbar on Jericho, Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds, the former WCW Cruiserweight Champion, he comes in, and what happens is that MJF is about to hit him, but he's like, no, I don't think I can do it. Just by his facial expressions, you're like, yeah, I can't do it. But instead, of course, as you guys all know, MJF is a heel, and he doesn't give a shit what he does. He basically right jabs him. He gives him a right hand. And on the commentary, they were stating that, of course, he has Parkinson's disease, so MJF is one low scum. And, of course, MJF is a heel, so what is he going to do? So he gives a right hand to Dean Malenko. I love the fact that they're adding Dean Malenko into this. Of course, he's not going to be wrestling, of course. But, I love what they're doing with Dean Malenko, of course, because he's close with Chris Jericho, and I love the story that they're telling when it comes to, the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle as a whole. I love the whole feud. I think it's one of the best feuds of the year, in my opinion. I've really enjoyed the feud between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. But, yeah, that was the MMA cage fight. I was not really that big of a fan of it, to be quite honest. Just stick to the pro wrestling and not MMA. That's just my opinion. Nothing against MMA. MMA fans are just like pro wrestling fans, in my opinion, but it is what it is. I was not that big of a fan of it. That's just me. Of course, we get a backstage segment with Penta El Zero, Kazarian, and Eddie Kingston talking about the match that they're going to have with the Good Brothers and Matt Jackson. Kazarian cuts a really good promo and all that stuff. So, yeah, we get Team Taz backstage talking about the issues that Team Taz is having, primarily with Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Taz states that the situation between him and Brian Cage needs to end, so that being Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. He calls out Hangman Page and challenges Hangman into a match with none other than Powerhouse Hobbs. So we're going to be getting a match with Hangman Page and Powerhouse Hobbs. I'm excited to watch that match. I wouldn't mind to watch that match. So yeah. All right, now our next match, well, our first official match of the evening, is Darby Allin versus Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. So, of course, a couple weeks ago, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page basically called out Darby Allin, saying that, he always needed Sting behind his back all the time. And they basically dared Darby Allin to be like, yeah, try to beat us without Sting. So basically Darby Allin was like, stay home, Sting, stay home. Okay. So the match happens. I thought this was a pretty okay match. I mean, there was a lot of things that were going on. I mean, Darby Allin looked great. I mean, he always, in my opinion, Darby Allin always looks great whenever he wrestles. Of course, we got a slap by Darby, then a couple arm drags. Sky tags in. We get a roll up and a near fall. Then we get a backbreaker by Page. Sky is legal at this point. He works on Darby. He kicks on Sky in the corner. We get a drop kick by Darby, and then we get a Canadian Destroyer. So he goes from a drop kick into a Canadian Destroyer, which looks awesome. I do believe that the Canadian Destroyer is by far the best finisher in the history of professional wrestling. I love the Canadian Destroyer. Shout out to Petey Williams for like the gajillionth time. We get a cover, and Page makes a save on Sky. Darby tries to tie in Page's boots in between. And we got a roll-up by Sky. So what happened, a little nod here is during this match, I don't know what was going on with my television, but like the satellite was kind of like breaking off. So I kind of missed a few portions of the match. But what happens is, so if my notes are kind of off, bear with me. We got a pinfall roll-up by Darby Allin. We got a near fall. Darby with the stunner on Sky. He goes to the top. Then we get a coffin drop on Sky. We get a cover, a tag by Page, works on Darby. Then we get an inside cradle by Darby. We get a near fall. Darby counters Page with a scorpion death drop, so that was pretty awesome. Sky tags in. Darby tags himself, which looked pretty cool. I love what they're doing with Darby Allin. They're trying to make him as this, just never say die attitude. I like what they're doing with Darby Allin here. Sky tags in. After that, we get a drop kick by Darby. My bad. Roll up and near fall by Darby Allin. We got a roll up again by Darby, and then we got a near fall. And then all of a sudden, Ethan Page puts Darby Allin on the top rope, hits him with the Ego's Edge, and Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page officially win this match. What are my thoughts on this match? It was a pretty good match. I didn't care for it as much, but I mean, it was not that bad. It was a pretty good match, but I was just not really as invested in it. But yeah. All right, next match we got Cezar Benoni versus Orange Cassidy. This match did not take too long. Of course, there was a little video package before the match to even start with. Cezar Benoni's little faction with JD Drake, Peter Avalon, and Ryan Nemeth. That faction, I believe, in my opinion, that small faction that they put together is just something that WWE would do. In my opinion, they just throw random people together with no reason whatsoever. That's basically the case with Cezar Benoni's faction. They put in Peter Avalon, Ryan Nemeth, and JD Drake, and who else? I don't even remember who else they put in that faction. That's how uninterested I am in that faction. But, I mean, I just don't really care. And they just threw people together with no reason whatsoever. That's just my opinion. So the match starts. Benoni works on Cassidy in the corner. We get a couple elbow throws by Cassidy across the ring. Ryan Nemeth and Peter Avalon are just spray tanning Cassidy after Cassidy gets thrown outside the ring. Benoni big boots Cassidy. Cassidy's on the outside and gets spray tanned again. They put a shiny jacket on Orange Cassidy. We got a right hand into the midsection on Cassidy by Cezar Benoni. Benoni's on the outside of the ring. We get an up and over the top rope by Cassidy. Best friends throw Cassidy over the top and hits Benoni's faction. We got a rolling DDT by Cassidy on Benoni. JD Drake tries to interfere, but Chris Statlander, in typical Chris Statlander fashion, touches the nose because she's an alien. She touches the nose of JD Drake. And after that, we get an orange punch by Cassidy on Benoni. We get a cover, and Orange Cassidy wins the match. This is a pretty substandard match. I wasn't really invested in it as well. But it was pretty fun to watch. I love the Best Friends. I love the fact that they paired the Best Friends with Chris Statlander. I think she'll do great with the Best Friends. I mean, Best Friends is one of my favorite tag teams in AEW right now. And I love how they in the beginning of Dynamite, they included Orange Cassidy. And I love the fact that they included Chris Statlander because Chris Statlander is an awesome talent as well. I do believe one day she will become AEW Women's Champion. She's really talented, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Chris Statlander. All right. Jungle Boy. We got a backstage interview with Alex Marvez. Alex Marvez is everywhere in the show. Like, he's just interviewing everybody. Now, granted, he interviews a lot of people in AEW, but like this show, he's just everywhere. He just interviews a lot of people. He's everywhere. So we got a backstage interview with Jungle Boy. Omega is in a golf cart. Omega and Callis interrupt Jungle Boy after that. He says that he has no suit and no belt. Says last week Jungle Boy embarrassed him. He dares Jungle Boy to right jab or left jab him right in the face. So he dares Jungle Boy to basically hit him or punch him, basically. Jungle Boy says that he would rather beat him for the championship next week. Omega tries to have Jungle Boy free shot him, and then all of a sudden Michael Nakazawa from behind attacks Jungle Boy backstage. Both Omega and Jungle Boy brawl. Then Omega and Callis run back with the golf cart, and as soon as Omega goes into the golf cart, he just pulls Nakazawa away, which is hilarious. They're using Nakazawa as like just they just don't give a shit about Nakazawa in my opinion. You know, they're just using Nakazawa, but it's hilarious to see. And basically Don Callis, aka Cyrus the Virus, and Kenny Omega just drive away with the golf cart, and yeah, that's it. All right. We get a backstage interview with Matt Hardy, basically, of course, big money Matt Hardy, talking about Christian Cage. Basically talking about, like, you know, how he will send him into a retirement home, all that typical stuff. Then Christian attacks him during the interview. Then while they're brawling, Hardy locks Cage in the cage. I know that kind of sounds really off, but it is what it is. Says that he needs to be retired and he will pay for his funds of retirement. So, you know, you got Christian Cage and Matt Hardy feuding. Where do I think this is going to be leading to? A lot of people are saying that, you know, ever since Double or Nothing, you know, Christian Cage and Jungle Boy had this little duo going on. A lot of people are saying that they might turn Christian Cage heel. I don't know about that. I mean, Christian Cage, throughout his whole career, he was always, when he was in WWE and when he was in TNA, I mean, he did a lot of flip-flops. Like, when he first went to TNA in late 2005, you know, of course, he was the babyface going after Jeff Jarrett for the NWA World title. He eventually won that at Against All Odds 2006. And then midway into his title run, he eventually turned heel and lost the belt. Actually, no, not even that. I think it was after he lost the belt to Jeff Jarrett in Slammiversary. I think he turned heel by turning on Sting. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he was a heel in TNA for a while until the end of his TNA run, until he turned babyface again. And the rest is history. He went back to WWE. But that's another story for another time. But do I think Christian Cage may turn heel in AEW? Maybe. Who knows? Maybe he could play a part in next week's title match with Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Kenny Omega. Who knows? I think something big is going to go down next week regarding that title match, but who knows? Most likely, I do believe that Omega is going to be retaining the title. All right. One match that I'm really excited to talk about is Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson versus QT Marshall and Aaron Solo. Now, I did state earlier that I'm not really that big of a fan of the Factory being QT Marshall's new faction. I stated earlier the reason why they're doing all of these factions is because of the fact that AEW is going to be introducing trios titles in the future. Because there's no other rhyme or reason as to why AEW is pushing all of these different factions. The reason why they're doing all these factions is because of the fact that they're going to be introducing trios titles. But I did state I'm not really that big of a fan of the Factory. I just don't care about them. And we're going to be getting a strap match with Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall on the first night AEW goes back on the road, which I believe is going to be Road Rager. So that's going to be, I mean, we've seen the match already, but it's probably going to kill off the feud. It's probably going to be the blow-off. But, of course, the highlight of this match was Brock Anderson. Of course, Brock Anderson is the son of the Enforcer, Arn Anderson. And I will say, Brock Anderson was really impressive in this match. He looks exactly like a younger version of his father, which is crazy. But he was impressed. At first, during the match, I was like, okay, all he's doing is wrist locks and working on the arm. But that was not the case. He really showed his strengths near the end of the match. So the match starts. Anderson and Aaron Solo start. Both lock up. Solo tries to pull the hair of Anderson. QT tags in. We got a couple right hands by Anderson. Cody tags in. We got a suicide dive by Cody. Solo at this point is legal in the match. We get a stomp to the back of Cody by Solo. QT tags in. He works on Cody. Solo tags in. He works on Cody in the corner. QT tags in. Cody counters a back body drop. drives QT in the corner. He drops him. Then we get a gut wrench suplex by Brock Anderson, which looked awesome. QT with the spine buster, cover into a near fall, shot by QT in the corner. He tries to tag in Cody. Cody tags in finally. The referee did not see it, which was stupid. I mean, AEW has been doing this recently, where a wrestler just tags in and the referee doesn't see it. Like, this is the second time I'm seeing this. I'm like, why is this going on? Sometimes, a lot of people criticize the AEW referees, and rightfully so, because sometimes they're just really blind. But it is what it is. So after that, QT... Oh, crap, where was I? We get a reverse DDT by Brock Anderson after that. Cody tags in. We get a couple clotheslines by Cody. Then we get a power slam by Cody. He brings QT in. He throws QT. We got a flying head scissors. Figure 4 on Solo by Cody. Solo hand is on the rope. We got a couple right hands by Cody on the top. We got a Canadian Destroyer on QT Marshall. Roll up by Solo and a near fall. Then we get a corkscrew kick on Solo. Cover. And Brock Anderson makes the save. Anderson tags in. He hits a devastating clothesline. Cody comes off the top and hits QT on the outside. Then we get a deep hook pin attempt by Anderson. And Cody and Cody and Brock Anderson win the match. I actually enjoyed this match. Brock Anderson is impressive. He's really good in the ring. And then, of course, after the match, you had Arn Anderson, of course, the father of Brock Anderson, hug his son in the middle of the ring. It was pretty good to see. I cannot wait to see what's going to be going on when it comes to Brock Anderson in the future. I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing with him. So yeah, he was really good in this match. He was a really good wrestler in his debut match in AEW, or I believe in his debut match on Dynamite. I don't know if he was Dark or not. I do not watch Dark or Dark Elevation, so please correct me if I'm wrong. All right, we get Lance Archer and Jake Roberts backstage. Basically, Roberts just cuts a random promo, and basically, while he was trying to speak, Lance Archer was just ranting and raving like crazy, and then after that, Jake Roberts was like, okay, I gotta go. What are they gonna do with Lance Archer? I have no idea. Of course, I mean, he did lose to Miro at Double or Nothing for the TNT Championship. I think he's still going to be in the TNT title picture. We just don't know when. It all depends on the rankings. I'm going to be 100% honest, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know what they're going to be doing with Lance Archer. All right. Now, we get one of my favorite things about this show was an interview with Jim Ross, or Jim Ross hosting an interview with Andrade El Idolo, formerly Andrade Cien Almas in WWE. So, of course, 2 weeks ago, on Dynamite, the Dynamite after Double or Nothing, which I did not review, I missed, but I did watch the show. Andrade made his debut, of course, with Vicky Guerrero, and the rest is history. So I'm so happy that Andrade is in AEW. I think he's going to be doing a lot of good things in AEW. A lot of people are saying there's been reports that Andrade has creative control, and he's demanding creative control when it comes to his character. So who knows what's going to be going on when it comes to Andrade. We do know that Andrade is actually going to be facing Kenny Omega for the AAA Mega Championship at Triple Mania. So I'm going to be watching that match. I mean, I don't watch AAA or CMLL, but I will be watching Triple Mania just for that match. I really want to see Andrade go after Kenny Omega. So in the interview, Jim Ross asks Andrade, why did he choose AEW? Andrade replies that there's many talent and there's many stars. And he states that he is the superstar. And then Jim Ross asks about the TNT Championship and the AEW World Championship. Andrade replies that he deserves the opportunity for both titles. Says that it's his next step. And then he begins to talk about Vicky Guerrero. He talks about the connection that he has with the Guerrero family. Says that he and Vicky have a surprise. Now, what that surprise is, a lot of people were assuming and theorizing that the surprise is going to be Thea Trinidad. If you don't know who Thea Trinidad, it's Selena Vega in WWE, but they're probably going to reunite them in AEW, in which, if that happens, it's going to be awesome. And, you know, there's rumors that once Aleister Black's 90-day no-compete clause finishes up and he goes to AEW, or not Aleister Black, his name is Tommy End now. If Tommy End goes to AEW, who knows, we could probably get a really awesome feud again. We can get the reignition of Tommy End versus Andrade. which I will be stoked about. I mean, those guys put on really good matches. I have to rewatch those matches, man. I haven't watched those matches in a while. But, I mean, you know, there's a lot of possibilities that are going to be going on. And I do think that, you know, this is going to be really huge about what's going to be happening with Andrade El Idolo. All right. Hangman Page and the Dark Order. We get a backstage interview with them. So basically, Alex Marvez asks him about what are his thoughts on Team Taz's challenge about him facing Powerhouse Hobbs. Says that he accepts. Says that he is with his friends and has a beer, and that's all he cares about right now, but he accepts. And he's asked about Jungle Boy versus Omega next week. And says he cares about that match, but, you know, right now I'm going to be focusing on my friends in the Dark Order. So basically, he puts over everybody, especially Evil Uno in the Dark Order, and they have all this huge, big celebration. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Hangman Page is the man to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW World title. I don't care what anybody says. He is the man to beat Omega for the AEW World Championship. It's pretty obvious. You would have a lengthy title reign with Hangman. Not only that, you can build up when it comes to the pinnacle, and you can have MJF take the title away from Hangman Page, and then, you know, you can have your... Like, a lot of people say Hangman Page is like a modernization of Magnum TA. Not only that, MJF is like a more modern version of Ric Flair. You know, that's a pretty big comparison, but, I mean, the similarities are there. But, I mean, I do believe Hangman Page will eventually dethrone Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. That's just my opinion. All right. Next up, we got our next match, Julia Hart versus Penelope Ford. Of course, Julia Hart is partnered with the Varsity Blondes, that being Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. This is a pretty good match. I'm a fan of Penelope Ford. I'm a big fan of Penelope Ford. I think she's a great in-ring worker. I do think I remember her match with Hikaru Shida a couple months ago on Dynamite. I think this was last year. I believe in the beginning of the fall or the end of the summer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember they had a match on Dynamite for the title. And I will say this, that was a really good match. It was one of the best women's matches in AEW, in my opinion. Penelope Ford versus Hikaru Shida. I really enjoyed that match. But the match starts with Julia Hart and Penelope Ford. Both lock up. Hart works on the arm of Ford. We got a takedown by Ford. Then we got a side headlock by Ford. We got a shoulder tackle by Hart. Drop kick by Hart. Crossbody by Hart. Ford is on the outside. Ford drops on Hart on the apron. Both exchange shots. We get a clothesline by Hart. Then we get a hammer throw by Hart. Roll up by Hart. Then a kick by Hart. Then we got we got a right hand by Ford. Then we get a gut buster by Ford on Julia Hart. Ford goes to the top. We get a moonsault attempt, but misses. Hart tried to go for the split leg drop, but Ford counters into a submission and makes Julia Hart tap out. And after the match, you had Penelope Ford literally holding on to that submission to the point where the Varsity Blondes, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison tried to scream at Penelope Ford, just stop, stop, stop. And then after that, Miro comes out and asks for Kip Sabian and says that he is undefeated. And after that, he attacks Griff Garrison. And Brian Pillman comes in, and both Brian Pillman Jr. and Miro brawl. And both brawl, and the referees are just trying to split them up. And that's that. Where is this going to be going? I don't know. They're probably going to have a tag team match with Miro and Kip Sabian and the Varsity Blondes. Who knows what's going to be going on? But yeah, I'm very looking forward to see what happens in that situation. All right. We get a backstage interview with the AEW Women's World Champion, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So, right before she even speaks in her interview, Vicky Guerrero comes in and says that she is in a happy place. She says that Britt Baker's happy place is eating cheeseburgers and asks Britt to give a title match to Nyla and ordered a match with Britt Baker and Reba, or Rebel, whatever you want to call her, versus Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose June 30th on Dynamite. So, of course, June 30th is the Wednesday that AEW is finally going to come back. The final Wednesday that they're going to be at Daly's Place, because after June 30th, they're going to be back on the road. I believe they're going to be in Texas, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be great to see. I believe it's in Florida. I don't even remember. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. So we got a tag team match booked for June 30th. We got Britt Baker and Reba or Rebel versus Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose. Of course, Vicky Guerrero wrestled a couple matches in WWE. She's not great in the ring, but, I mean, they're probably going to be booking a match in the future with Britt Baker and Nyla Rose in the future. We get an awesome video package with Santana and Ortiz and FTR, talking about their upbringings and feud. I will say I love when it comes to AEW. One of the things that I really like about AEW is their video packages. When it comes to WWE, they try to make their video packages really, really extremely cinematic, like it's a movie. And I understand what they're trying to do with that, but when it comes to AEW, what they do with their video packages is that they make them seem important and not really as cinematic as WWE does. Not only that, if they ever had like a super card and there's matches that you're not invested in, AEW tries their best to actually make you invested in the match by throwing in a video package, even if it's a match that you don't really care about. And that's something that I really appreciate about AEW. And WWE sometimes does this, but like sometimes, most of the time actually WWE just throws rematches out of nowhere. But this is a really good video package with FTR and Santana and Ortiz, two of the best tag teams, not only in AEW, but two of the best tag teams in wrestling right now. Really good video package. If you haven't watched the video package, check it out. Next up, we got Mark Sterling and Jade Cargill. So says that they partnered with the hotel, and basically Jade replies that the hotel is for the wrestlers that get beat by Jade, and says that the code for the hotel is that bitch because Jade Cargill, and I love that catchphrase. Jade Cargill is that bitch. That is a really good catchphrase. I'm starting to, Jade Cargill, I do think, is still really green when it comes to her in-ring work, but I do think that Jade Cargill is starting to improve more, and I really love her in-ring. Not her in-ring. I really love her promos. I believe what she's saying, and she's not overly scripted, and I really love her catchphrase that she's that bitch. I don't know about you, but that's a really badass catchphrase. All right. Main event time. We got Penta El Zero, Frankie Kazarian, and Eddie Kingston versus the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows, and Machine Gun Carl Anderson, and one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, one half of the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson. So, this was a really good match. I really enjoyed this match. Of course, AEW is known for their high spots in their tag team matches, and a lot of people criticize AEW when it comes to their high spots, and I do think sometimes they got to dim that down a little bit, but I remember when they were head-to-head against NXT constantly, almost every week there was like, the entire card was just a tag team match. But I feel like they kind of dimmed that down a little bit. There's still tag team matches on Dynamite, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the amount of tag team matches are less than what they used to have, but there's still plenty of tag team matches, but this was a really good tag team match. Penta El Zero is awesome. Eddie Kingston is one of the best things on AEW television, period, mainly because of his promos, and I love the chemistry with Eddie Kingston and Matt Jackson. So Kazarian, the match starts. Kazarian goes right after Carl Anderson. We get a kick by Kazarian and a clothesline by Anderson. Penta tags in. He kicks on Anderson. Anderson targets the eyes of Pentagon. Matt Jackson tags in. Matt Jackson and Carl try to double team. We get a sling blade by Pentagon. Eddie tags in. We get a double team attempt by Kingston and Penta. Kingston works on Matt Jackson, my bad. Nick Jackson actually comes in later on in the match. Sends Matt to the corner and oversells. So what happens is that Kingston, I believe he Irish whipped Matt Jackson, and once Matt Jackson hit the turnbuckle in the corner, he just oversold that like $1 million, like Shawn Michaels was overselling on Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 2005. That was hilarious. So he oversells. Doc Gallows tags in. We got a shoulder tackle, but Gallows does not go down. Kingston is on the top and drops on Gallows. Carl Anderson attacks Kingston on the outside. Then we get a brawl breaking out with everybody that's involved in the match. We get a kick by Pentagon on Matt Jackson. We get a right hand by Gallows on Kingston. Repeated right hand on Kingston by Matt Jackson. Carl Anderson works on Eddie Kingston back from commercial break. Matt tags in. The Good Brothers pick up Matt Jackson and boot Kingston. Chops by both Matt and Kingston. We get a belly-to-belly suplex by Eddie Kingston. Kazarian tags in. He takes down everyone. Anderson tags in. He slams Anderson. Springboard leg drop. We get a cover into a near fall. Anderson fights back. Kazarian applies the crossface chicken wing. A little nod to Bob Backlund right there. Gallows boots Kazarian. Spine buster by Anderson. Penta and Matt tag in. We got a diving crossbody by Pentagon. Backbreaker by Penta on Matt. We get an Insiguri on Gallows by Pentagon. We get a somersault on the outside by Pentagon. We get a reverse DDT by Penta on Matt. Cover into a near fall. Kicks in the corner on Matt Jackson. Shotgun drop kick driver by Kingston, Angel's Wings, a little nod to Christopher Daniels, on Matt Jackson by Kazarian. Anderson is sent in the corner. We get a kick in the corner. We get a thrust kick on Anderson by Pentagon. We get a cover and a near fall, a neck breaker by Carl Anderson. Gallows tags in, attacks Kingston and Kazarian, kicks Penta. We get a combination attempt by the Good Brothers, so we got a little double team right there. Elbow drop by Matt Jackson, cover and a near fall. Good Brothers try to hit the Magic Killer. We got a super kick blocked by Eddie Kingston. He drops Matt. We get a boot by Anderson on Kingston. Then we get a backstabber on Carl Anderson by Pentagon. Nick Jackson out of nowhere comes in and sprays Pentagon out of nowhere. So he just sprays him with all that stuff. We get a cover by Carl Anderson from the top on Penta. We get a cover, and the Good Brothers and Matt Jackson win the match with the help of Nick Jackson, of course. So the match ends. And yeah, so that was the main event. I will say about this match, I really loved this match. This match was really good. I love the feud when it comes to Eddie Kingston and the Young Bucks and everybody else. But I feel like the main event, and I feel like the most important part of this feud is Eddie Kingston. I do think Eddie Kingston is gonna. I think in the future Eddie Kingston is gonna be a star. He's really good at what he does, and I know in the future I do believe he's gonna be a champion in the future. Of course, the Young Bucks, of course, doing their heel tactics. I really love their heel personas. They just don't give a crap. They love pissing everybody off, and that's what I like about the Young Bucks. The Good Brothers, of course, they're the Good Brothers. What can you do? But yeah, this match was awesome. Pentagon was great. Pentagon is awesome. Rey Fenix and Pentagon are, I love the Lucha Bros. Rey Fenix is an amazing athlete. I remember his match with Kenny Omega a couple months ago for the AEW World title on Dynamite. Amazing match. Pentagon is the same thing. He's an amazing wrestler, phenomenal wrestler, and I really enjoyed this match. Kazarian also, highlight of this. Kazarian is awesome. I love how he hit the Angel's Wings. A little nod to Christopher Daniels, of course, because he after that match with SCU and the Young Bucks, of course, the SCU split up, and you had Kazarian actually pull a little bit of somewhat of a tribute to Christopher Daniels, the Fallen Angel, with when he was doing the Angel's Wings. So that was actually pretty cool. But yeah, that was AEW Dynamite from June 18th, 2021. Overall thoughts on this show, I wasn't really invested in this show. I'm happy that AEW is actually going to be back on a normal time slot. Granted, they're still going to be preempted on a Saturday, but they're not going to be on at 10. They're going to be on at 8, so that's going to be great. Of course, after that, the next Wednesday show after that is going to be the final AEW Dynamite at Daly's Place before they go back to the road, which I'm excited about because the crowd is one of the highlights of AEW, and that's what I really love about AEW before the pandemic. The crowd was, every crowd that AEW went to, it was not dead at all. The crowd was always amped up, and that's what I love about AEW. And I cannot wait. So yeah, the first hour was not the best. The second hour was a little bit better than the first hour. The main event was awesome, but I mean, it was not the best show. Of course, I do think next week's show is going to be a really good show, mainly because it's going to be a live show. Not only that, we're going to get Jungle Boy versus Kenny Omega, and I do believe that's going to be a really good match to watch. So yeah, I'm filming this review actually before my SmackDown review, so I'm uploading back-to-back. Finally, this is going to be the final time I upload back-to-back. I'm uploading this on the same day as Hell in a Cell. Who would have thunk it that, we got a pay-per-view, and nobody really cares. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review. Be on the lookout for my SmackDown review. It's going to be uploaded right after this Dynamite review is uploaded. Not only that, on Monday, I'm going to be having my Hell in a Cell review. What are going to be my thoughts on the pay-per-view? I don't even know. I mean, nobody really cares about Hell in a Cell, but it is what it is. But yeah, that was AEW Dynamite. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. Not only that, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's on the screen right here, and it's also on the description below. And yeah, this was AEW Dynamite, and this is Broken Havoc from the Broken Havoc podcast. Signing out.